Okay, so we're back with a new episode here in Bad Movies and Swedish Opinion. It's going to be a bit different today, more of a special episode in that way. We haven't done this before. We're going to talk about the Star Wars sequels, the three movies, Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. And we really just want to talk loosely about them and what we think about them, both good and bad. So we're not just going to be shitting all over these movies, even if that's going to be agenda, I'm guessing. But just a warning, it's going to be spoilers because we're going to assume that you've seen the movies and that you just want to hear about our opinions and maybe if you can relate to them. So we're going to start off like right away. So I just want to hear first from you two guys. What are your relationship to the movies, to the earlier movies, and what were your expectations going into the sequel when you heard about Disney releasing Force Awakens? So, Adam, if you start talking about what is your relationship to the movies as a whole?
Okay, so I love Star Wars. So I especially love the classic trilogy, so episode 4, 5, and 6. I have also played a few of the Star Wars games that I'm a big fan of. So I love Star Wars, but I'm not one of the dead hardcore fans because I haven't read any of the books and I haven't watched any of the spin-off series or anything like that. But yeah, I like Star Wars.
Did you watch the movies 4, 5, and 6 over and over again when you were little, or you just saw them occasionally when they showed up on the TV?
No, I watched them over and over. When I heard that these new movies were coming, I was hopeful because more Star Wars. So yeah, I was positive. I can say that much.
Yeah. But let's jump over to you, Ruben. What's your relationship to the movies?
Well, let's just say that I used to love it very much. It was one of my favorite franchises throughout everything. I have seen the movies probably 100 times each, and I've read about 10 or 12 of the books, and I've played a lot of the games and so on. I was really invested into everything. I've seen both the Clone Wars series and I saw the first 3 seasons of Rebels as well, but haven't seen the newest one. It's a bit hard because I was really passionate about the whole franchise. I used to love everything about it. Me and my wife used to watch it from episode 1 until the newest one in succession, maybe 5 times a year or something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more. And I even saw the Force Awakens twice at the cinema, and I've never seen a movie more than once at the cinema before. So that was...
You really liked the Force Awakens then?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I really liked it as well, and it fit pretty well the movies as well. But then, let's just say that episode 8 happened. We can talk more about that later.
Yeah, so and my relationship to Star Wars is actually pretty new. I haven't seen the original and the prequels as a kid. I saw them as an adult, and my perspective on the movies is kind of different then, because you don't really get the excitement as a kid to see, Darth Vader and Luke fight at the end scene. And, all I can think of now when I see the movies is more of a special effects and, and the choreographic regarding the fighting style and whatnot, because, you're getting used to so much, advanced stuff nowadays. So when I saw the original trilogy as an adult, I wasn't that impressed.
No, it is a completely different thing when you see the retro movies back when, they're actually considered to be groundbreaking.
Yeah, exactly. And this is movies from the 70s, 80s, so you have to keep that in mind. I'm guessing that kids today is not going to watch those movies and be super impressed about that. I think they're going to think they're pretty lame. actually.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of nostalgia.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always that perspective too, going into these kind of movies, because it's not just the acting, it's not just the visual scheme above it all, and it's not just the story itself. Because when today's adults that grew up with the movie are watching today's trilogy, they're going to have the excitement and nostalgia in the back of their heads when they're watching these new movies. It doesn't necessarily need it's going to be bad for them, but it's going to be hard to live up to that expectations, because you're not a kid anymore, and you're not going to have those feelings watching these movies as you had as a kid, even if it turned out to be good. It didn't, but even if.
Yeah, there's probably like a lot of people who grew up watching the prequel trilogy and they still love that. So like it's different from the original trilogy, but it's still something that's pretty special to them, at least.
And as you said, when it was released, it was groundbreaking. It was a sci-fi like we never seen before, and so it was a big deal, of course, when they were released. And I can imagine, people going to the cinema back in the days and seeing these movies, that they were like crazy impressed.
Yeah, you always got to keep in mind that this, in a way, I would say that Star Wars is kinda to the sci-fi what Lord of the Rings is to the fantasy. Like, it completely set up sci-fi for movies that would come after it. And if you're like a current kid watching sci-fi, then it might be hard to respect in that same way, even if you understand it. But it's hard to see the greatness, probably, because you compare it to the modern sci-fi.
Exactly. And if you're looking at filmmaking as a whole, it's also, it's a very young genre in that sense, and it haven't been done before. So a lot of the things that we might say is cliche in those original movies, they were first doing that kind of stuff. So they kind of lay the groundwork for coming movies. So it's a big deal, I would say. Okay, so it goes out in the news that Disney is now the owner of LucasArts, and they're going to release a new trilogy, and they are building up the expectations, because if I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they said that it was supposed to be the same scriptwriters, the same director, and there was going to be a story predefined before going into this.
Well, I think the hype was mostly because of the old characters returning with the original actors like 30 years later, which was a cool thing. And the story was supposed to be created by the original writers, well, except for George Lucas. And I think people were pretty ready for that, because a lot of people felt like episode 1, 2, and 3 that were made like completely by George Lucas, like he had lost his touch somewhat, and people were ready to see what new talent could do with Star Wars when he wasn't involved. And it started off pretty good, but then it just crashed and burned.
Yeah, so Force Awakens was released, and here we get a very good transition, I would say, between the old and the new. And it's very impressive how they got the old characters to appear again in this new Star Wars movie. And I thought this was absolutely necessary to do the transition over to the new characters that we were going to be introduced to and, get to know, we thought. Yeah, but maybe he needed that break, and also the increasing amount of money they must have introduced to him.
Yeah,
I must say at least that I'm actually impressed that they actually had the courage to kill Han Solo in the movie.
Yeah,
wasn't that pretty expected?
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why Harrison Ford wanted to do it, because he finally wanted to kill off his character.
Yeah, but yeah, because I think you said that before, Ruben, that he wanted to die in episode 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he wanted so, but the screenwriters didn't really agree with him.
The thing,
They wanted a happy ending.
Yeah, the thing is though, like you would think that Harrison Ford might just phone it in and just collect his paycheck and be done with Star Wars. But I actually I think he is the best actor in The Force Awakens. He does a really good job, in my opinion.
I think it's hard to talk about who's the best actor there because I really think that Adam Driver is excellent.
Yeah,
I think that he is the one that carries this trilogy, I would say. He's the most interesting character, even though they screw him up too. But that's not Adam's fault.
I've heard a lot talk about his character, and it really seems to be a hit or miss. That a lot of people hate his character, and some seem to like understand him in a different way, and they seem to like him.
Yeah. So Kylo Ren for me is a character who he is the son of Han Solo and Leia, and he is a descendant from Darth Vader, which means that he has both sides within him. He has the dark side and he has the light side. And I thought that was really good to bring that into a villain these days, because it's not new in that sense, but it's interesting because then you don't really know what way the screenwriters will go. Will he turn out to be a villain or will he turn out to be good? And I think everybody expected him to be bad, and in a sense he was that. But you could see throughout all 3 movies that he is struggling, because he wants so bad to be bad, but he has a conscience or something that makes him act differently than he wants to. He has a chance to kill off his mother, Leia, but he decides not to, because he still feels like he feels stuff. And if you compare that to Anakin, I mean, he was totally lost in the dark. I mean, he killed those bunch of kids, and he was he was gone.
It's hard to argue that Anakin is good in any way in Episode 3. Like he's an evil douchebag the entire movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and it was pretty new in that sense, I think, because you get introduced to Anakin as a young kid, and you kind of he's a kid, he can't hurt anyone, and then he grew up to be Darth Vader. I mean, it's a good development of a character, I think.
Okay, so the huge difference between episode 1, 2, 3 and 7, 8, 9 for me is that when you look back, it's obvious that episode 1, 2, 3 had like a big plan for this is how the 3 movies will be. Episode 7, 8, 9, they didn't really have a plan. 7 came, 8 came, 9 came, and like you can tell that they didn't have a clear plan to connect them.
Let me just ask you a simple question and see if you can answer this. What is the sequel trilogy about?
It's basically about Anakin and how he gets introduced to the Jedi Order and
I mean the sequel trilogy.
That's
harder.
That's harder, yeah.
Exactly, because there's so many twists and turns that you kind of lose track, and then you have that disaster of a movie in the end, The Rise of the Skywalker, that totally pisses on the whatever thought of a story that it might have. And let's talk a bit about what makes the story so hard to follow, because I think, if I remember correctly, there was supposed to be like a red line throughout the movie, that it should have been, decided that, okay, we're going to honor the nerds, and we're going to give them a story that they deserve. But during the years, you have some dropouts, and I think it was supposed to be J.J. Abrams all throughout the way, but then they changed him to Rian Johnsson. And,
actually, it was actually supposed to be 3 different directors for all 3 movies from the beginning.
Really?
They just got J.J. Abrams for the first one because they kind of nagged him because he didn't want to do any of them at first. So then reluctantly he agreed to make episode 7, and it turned out to be a pretty great success. But then he wasn't supposed to do anymore, and then Rian Johnsson came in and screwed episode 8 up. And
But
then
how is that a good idea to have 3 different directors for this? If you think about this, how is that a good idea? I mean, even if you choose to have a vision, at least you have a story to follow, instead of having like 3 individual movies that 3 minds need to connect.
Yeah, but the thing is, the original trilogy has 3 different directors as well. It's George Lucas in the first one, and then there are other people in episode 5 and 6. But George Lucas still wrote the story for episode 5 and 6.
Yeah, but you still need to have someone, as you say, that decides it. I mean, you still need someone to keep track. I mean, you can have an army, but where people have their own minds and whatnot. But if you don't have one that controls, and point them towards a direction, they're just going to run amok and do whatever they please. And I think that, okay, I'm not a fan of it, but you can have different directors. But then you need to have someone who is above those 3 to tell them, okay, you wanted to do this, but you can't because of what happened in the first movie. You need some sort of expert behind them.
Yeah, for some reason, all 3 movies, the director is part of the writing crew, or in like episode 7, it's J.J. Abrams and whatever his face is, the Han Solo writer, whatever, from episode 6 as well. But they like lay the ground rules and came up with something pretty good. But then they move over to episode 8, and instead of them still writing the story, Rian Johnsson gets to get in there and write most of it for some reason, and he just goes in a completely different direction.
Exactly, and that is the problem here, because The Force Awakens, you get a nice transition. It's a lot of rehashing, but it's nice. It's a good movie. You can see it again. And then we were introduced to Rian Johnsson, and that's like the second movie in the trilogy, and there is a really right turn, like right away. It's like Rian Johnsson looked at the first movie, had a couple ideas, and then you just wanted to, make twists and turns instead of, writing a story. Because there are a lot of things in the movie that makes you feel like, okay, I wasn't expecting that, like Rey and her parents being nobodies. It's like, okay, we've been talking about who her parents can be, but okay, she doesn't have any. I guess that's okay. And then you have like Kylo Ren, and he's like, I want to be the supreme leader now, so I'm going to kill off Snoke, even though I didn't want to do that in the first movie. Okay, so we have been talking about Snoke this year, and wanted to know more about him, but okay, he was unnecessary too. And then it turned out it was Palpatine behind it all, and he hasn't been mentioned at all throughout the trilogy. Okay, we can accept that. I mean, there's no way we can accept that. We can't accept that much twists and turns because some guy had a cool idea about the movie.
No, the thing is that in episode 7, I feel like they were really trying to get the old Star Wars feelings out of every scene and stuff. Like they relied a lot on nostalgia and just tried to
Absolutely
redo the whole thing again. But it's still a good movie, even though it's a bit of a rehash, as you say.
Episode 7 is a lot of fan service, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry, go on.
No, I just wanted to say that then Rian Johnsson comes in and writes episode 8, and he, instead of trying to stay true to the Star Wars formula, so to say, he just wants to make the most unexpected thing at every turn. Like every chance he gets, just do the most unexpected thing ever. And that doesn't really work.
Well, it's an interesting thought, actually, because, Let's say that we're talking about Force Awakens again, and there's a lot of rehashing there going on, and your fan service, as you say, Adam, and you feel pretty good watching the movie because you recognize the characters and you introduce the new ones, and someone holds your hand when you walk over the street, and and then it comes over to The Last Jedi, and there's a lot of stuff there that we don't recognize, that we don't expect. Is that a bad thing then? Because the trilogy cannot just be someone petting ourselves and patting ourselves on the back and say, "Oh yeah, we recognize this. It's the same story as the original, just in a new visual way."
I think that's why the movie is loved by some and hated by some. Like, some people love him for trying a new thing, and some people hate him because they feel that he kind of ruined the Star Wars feeling.
Okay, so in a standalone movie, is The Last Jedi a good movie?
No. Also, I want you to consider this for a moment. Consider being J.J. Abrams and just finish watching episode 8, and you realize that you have to somehow continue from that and make a whole new movie with what Rian Johnsson left.
Yeah. He
get it just hand ever that he never ever will be able to win anything with.
I understand what you're saying. So what is like a bunch of more movies to follow up on the story? Because okay, the trilogy, it was maybe a good idea back then, but now you get a good ending, a more slow paced storyline. I mean that scene, of that place they're at, with the water and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Visually, that is the most cool scene throughout Star Wars.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
Yeah, it's really nice. And when Kylo Ren comes out of the water with his lightsaber, yeah, it's a really nice scene. So just like watching that, it's fine.
I've heard people talk about Abrams as a director in the sense that his stories are nonsense, but at least he can make them look really cool.
Mm.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not nonsense in that sense because as you say, Adam, he's got a pretty bad hand dealt to him. So,
I'm not saying I agree with the valuation, but I do agree with that. It's really good with effects and the really flashy encounters, and that's probably the best part of Rise of Skywalker, I say.
Yeah, absolutely. The visual is amazing. The only thing that's a problem with the Rise of Skywalker is the pace, because in every scene there's something going on. You never get like a minute to breathe and take in what you just seen, or just to look over to your buddy and say, "Hey, what a cool scene," or whatever. Because whenever that scene is over, something new is happening that you need to keep track of, and your mind is like going ape shit because to keep track of the storyline and what's happening and who's related to who and who's not in the dark side and who's in the light side, whatever.
Yeah, the problem is that the movie is too short, and it's 2.5 hours long already.
Yeah, so maybe they could have done like a Twilight thing or a Harry Potter thing where they do a final movie divided into two.
You agree with me, but I felt that episode 8 was the opposite, because it felt like nothing happened, because almost the whole movie was that giant First Order ship chasing that small resistance, and I just thought it felt so stupid and pointless.
Yeah, and I just could not bear see it again.
No, it's the third of the movie, and it's totally pointless because Rose and Finn are sent to this casino planet, whatever, and whatever they do there affects nothing, because what they do there, if they do it or don't do it, it doesn't affect the rest of the story.
No. The only thing they get out of that bit is that there's some rich people supplying the First Order with resources, I think. But otherwise, it's just like Las Vegas, a James Bond movie, and it's so out of place. I cannot even imagine. If I saw this in a parody of Star Wars, I would have seen it too dumb to be in a parody. That's how dumb it is. If you would have seen it as Spaceballs, you would have said that's too dumb to be in a Star Wars.
Especially as they act as the biggest morons in the whole universe. Like, they land there and then they get arrested for illegal parking. But apparently they didn't think of that.
I mean, yeah, and you know, it's inevitable to talk about, but you know, Rose is, I don't even want to say she's the worst character in the Star Wars saga. I want to say she's the worst character ever created.
To me, I don't care that much about her character.
No, exactly, that's the problem. She's just a nobody. She's there for diversity. Nobody cares about you, Rose. You could have died in the second scene, and I wouldn't even shed a tear.
She should have let Finn die as well, because that would have made his character better.
I hated the fact that she saved him.
Yeah, I know. And she didn't even die saving him. So,
but she's not even in episode 9 that much, so it's pointless.
Well, you know, she's there. So, you know, because, you know, J.J. Abrams was like, okay, what am I supposed to do with her? It's like, well, let's keep her at the base. I don't know. Well, give her some lines.
That one thing that was super stupid about this too, they do this whole activism thing. They have to save the space horses or whatever from the rich people. And I guess that's fine, but it's stupid for a Star Wars movie, but okay, whatever. Let's go with this. So then episode 9 comes around and they say, you know what? Those space horses would be awesome to have running on spaceship in the final act of this movie as well.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Even if you don't have anything to fight with, how is it a good idea to put horses with hooves on metal running on a flying object?
And
that's the dumbest thing I have ever seen.
Yeah, and they act like, oh my god, we can't count the horses. Like, can't they tilt the ship so the horses fall off?
Yeah, exactly. But that is the thing. They should just like, okay, let's turn like 3 degrees to the left, and you know, well, let's see what happens. Oh my god, they fell to the depths. Oh, that's interesting.
Apparently, this is the blind spot of this like high-tech sci-fi warfare. They forget that they can be countered by this medieval warfare on horseback.
Yeah, it's even more. It's even more stupid than like in episode 6 when the Ewoks are throwing rocks at the stormtroopers, killing them with like a pebble. Like that's one part stupid. I think they wanted to recreate that feeling for some reason in episode 9.
There's no way. There's no way he's that deep. No way. That's just a coincidence. That's just a stupid thing that he thought it would look cool, but ended up look like a shitty cartoon.
And of all the things to recreate, like no one liked the fact that they would be able to defeat the Empire with their caveman tactics. That's the worst part of episode 6.
Yes.
Yeah, and also, you know, in the Rise of the Skywalker, you know, when they end up in that festival, that only occurs once every 42 years, but you know, they managed to, you know, land on that planet exactly on that moment when they had it. I mean, I'm not going to say that's lucky. That's like, I don't even want to count on those odds. Maybe Free CPO could help me with that. But, you know, in Lando Calrissian, he kills a stormtrooper with an arrow. And I just thought, if he can't even withstand an arrow, what is the point? Just remove the armor. Come on. You have to be more smooth without them. Because it doesn't help anything. Have you ever seen a stormtrooper not being killed in combat? Besides Finn.
And they never hit anything either. Like they're great at hitting walls and air, but not people.
And you know, talking about killing people, you know that Finn in the Force Awakens, he was like, I don't want to kill anyone because, you know, I'm a good guy. But then when he tried to flee from that spaceship, he just kills all of the stormtroopers that he sees. I mean, what if they had exactly the same thought as that they didn't want to stay there, and he just killed them all? I mean, Finn is quite of a hypocritical dick.
He shared in episode 8.
Otherwise, I think Finn is a good character. I like Finn.
Yeah, I like his character too, especially in episode 7.
Yeah, I really liked him in episode 7 because I liked the way he was going, but then it turns out in episode 8 that they didn't actually plan to go anywhere with him, so...
Can we talk about something entirely different also?
Sure.
You know, in the first original and the prequel, there isn't that many women and other types of people. And in the sequel prequel, there is super much diversity. Do you think that messes with the storyline, or was I a bit of a douchebag noticing how much of women were fighting and how much diversity between, different races there were amongst the humans?
Well, that doesn't matter usually, because as long as the characters have a decent story and a decent development, it doesn't really matter what they are. But specifically in Star Wars, they do this super feminist thing that just because they're women they can do anything, or the PC thing, just because they're black or Asian or whatever, they can do anything. It doesn't make sense, because you have to earn this, whatever race or gender you are.
Yes, and I think that's the key word, earn.
Yeah.
Which also brings the point, do you think that Rey is a Mary Sue?
Yes.
Well, I didn't care for Rey. I cared for Kylo Ren because, I could see that he was, struggling with going towards any direction. But with Rey, it was mostly like she felt so insecure. She felt like a teenager. I didn't care for her.
But that's the thing, that you care for characters that are struggling because you become impressed by how they're struggling. Kylo Ren struggles, that's why I like him. Rey doesn't really struggle because she just succeeds with everything she tries.
Yeah, she tries everything once and always succeeds.
But maybe it's the storyline behind her that in the beginning doesn't exist, and that's the problem, that we don't really know what she's fighting towards. All we know is that she in some way wants to find who her parents was and to destroy everything that's bad. But what if we have found out in The Force Awakens in some way, subtle perhaps, I don't know, that she actually was a Palpatine? Do you think that it would have helped her character, that maybe, okay, she's a Palpatine, but she wants to be good, in the same way that Kylo Ren is Han Solo's son and he's a rebel in his blood, but he wants to be bad? Or would that just have been like the same storyline, but just the opposite for Kylo Ren and Rey?
I think that could be kind of cool if you could see Kylo Ren and Rey as kind of yin and yang thing, both in their history and how they are trying to act.
Yeah, I even think that instead of saying that her parents were nobody in Episode 8, they could have just said that her parents were Palpatines.
Yeah, but that wasn't in the storyline at all.
I know, but they could have done that to make it better, transition better.
But wouldn't it be cool that Rey, she was on this planet Jakku, I think, and she didn't really have any connection to anyone or anything. She was just at this random planet in the universe, and she didn't know anything. What if she just I'm Rey Palpatine, when she introduced herself to Finn the first time when they meet? And I'm pretty sure that Finn wouldn't even know who Palpatine is either, and maybe not even Poe or whatnot. I mean, maybe Palpatine could have been she talked about Luke Skywalker to be some sort of myth. Maybe Palpatine could have been even more distant to her, that she didn't even know who he was. That she could have been Rey Palpatine all from the beginning, and she didn't even realize it.
Yeah, I think I would like that.
Isn't it strange that she never presents herself with the last name ever until
but she doesn't know her last name, right?
No, I know, but then you take one, because if you just introduce yourself as Rey, people start asking, "What's your last name?"
Yeah, but did she meet people? I mean, maybe she's from what she knows, she only knows that her name is Rey.
Yeah, but when she meets Han Solo and Chewbacca in Episode 7, they say, "Oh, I'm Han Solo, and this is Chewbacca. Who are you?" "I'm Rey." Okay. It seems like the most normal question would be, Rey who, or what's your last name, whatever. But
what if when the parents abandoned her on this Jakku planet, that that she said, okay, your name is Ray Palpatine. Okay, remember that. And she was like 5 or whatever when she heard that. And when she grows up, she heard like, oh, my name is Ray Palpatine. So that she she got her last name wrong. So throughout the storyline, she has a last name, but she's pronouncing it wrong because she's remembering it wrong. And then throughout the story, she's like, no, your name is Ray Palpatine, and that's like a totally different story. And then we get something to like talk about too, because what is that last name? What does it come from? Because Star Wars fans like to talk about stuff.
Well, that'd been better than no last name at all, or at least trying to say that you have a last name. I think that would have been better than just, hi, I'm Cher. Whatever.
Yeah, it reminds me of actually one of the plot twists of, I don't know if you've seen it, but Stephen King made this series called Kingdom Hospital.
No.
No, it's towards the end, so I probably shouldn't spoil it in case anyone listening doesn't want it spoiled.
Okay, whatever. Just say it, and we have a spoiler warning.
Okay, so it's basically that there is this creepy little girl that it's about this haunted hospital, and she's there, and she has this kind of strange thing by her side that looks kind of like some kind of monstrous anteater. And she calls it Antibus, and it doesn't make any sense. But towards the end of the series, it's actually revealed that his name is Anubis, but she didn't hear that properly because she's just a child, so she calls him Antibus instead.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's pretty similar.
Yeah, that could have worked in this as well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what I mean. So, but I thought I was being original here, but okay. But we need to talk a little bit more about the rise of the Skywalker, because in the end she decides that she's a Skywalker, and from the first scene where we saw her, the thing that everybody says was, of course, she's related to Skywalker. She's of course a Skywalker, and then she takes that name in the end. She wasn't really related to him, but she turned out to be a Skywalker in the end, because of her, I don't know, moral. What did you think about that? I mean, what do you think about the ending?
Okay, about the ending, I have one big concern, which may be a stupid concern, but still a concern. Like, Luke Skywalker's house is just there in the middle of nowhere, and no one cared. If I was someone, I would build some kind of Skywalker museum there and earn money. But no, it's just abandoned and no one cares about it. Isn't that strange?
That was a completely different take than I was expecting.
I know, that's why I say it's stupid, but it was actually on my mind.
I thought you were going to say that maybe someone should vandalize it or something, or take over it and live there or something. But yeah, of course it could have been.
I mean, in order that
Skywalker aunt and uncle that lives there, so it's the Lars, Owen Lars and his wife's. It's the Lars residence, so maybe that doesn't connect with people that a Walker has lived there because it's the Lars residence or whatever.
Lars residence. Yeah. Okay, but I just wanted to point us in a direction here, because what I was thinking about was about the ending is that it turns out that Rey and Kylo Ren, they kiss. I mean, yeah, that's stupid itself, but that's not really what I mean. It's just like throughout this story, I thought of them as brother and sister. I know they wasn't related, but I thought that was their relationship in a sense. Not that there were romantic feelings between them. I thought of it as a sibling rivalry thing, not about some forbidden love thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't think it was very romantic before, but
No, it came from nowhere. It's like yeah. Okay, we need to end this in some way, and they need to kiss, and then he dies.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. That was the most dumbest thing ever. I said that 5 times already. It feels like, but it's they could have done a lot of things, and they choose to do that. I mean, why not just let Kylo Ren live, and they could have been not together, because I still don't want that, but they could have been working next to each other as friend to a friend or whatever, not effing lovers.
I wanted Kylo Ren to stay bad the whole way through, and then that just comes out of nowhere, and he's good all of a sudden.
Yeah, but that's the Darth Vader ending. That's fan
Yeah,
fiction.
but that's my point. We already had that. Why do it again?
Yeah, but then we goes back to discussion of going the different direction or not. That whatever you do, you can't win.
Yeah,
It's just that it felt like a very Disney ending in a way, and I didn't like that.
I have a problem with it if it was more obvious throughout the whole thing, and it's not. It just happens.
I wanted Rey to be bad. I wanted her to go to the dark side. I wanted her and Kylo Ren to be to be like the villains of the dark side. I wanted them to be that, because it would be so cool if Rian Johnsson just like when Kylo Ren reaches out his hand and she actually takes it and she goes to the dark side, because she feels like she belongs there because of her Palpatine blood and whatever. And and the storyline from the good side is Finn and that gang. I mean, because even from the first scene, that Rey is going to be a Skywalker and whatever, and she's going to be good and whatnot. And Kylo Ren has his dark hair and he has a mask and he's the bad guy. But wouldn't it have been cool if they just gone like a complete different direction, like Rian Johnson's trying to do, and she goes to the bad side, and she still has not very good feelings about her being on the bad side, but she chose to do that because she feels like she belongs there. Wouldn't that have been so much better? Cooler, at least.
It would have.
Unexpected. But then you have two villains, and I know that's hard to write, but still.
And also, I had this problem from the very moment the movie began, that I couldn't accept that Emperor Palpatine was back. Now, I know that this has been hinted elsewhere in other media and in books and such. So, to the hardcore Star Wars fan, this wasn't a surprise. But I didn't like at all that it wasn't mentioned at all in the past films. And then suddenly this movie opens with Emperor Palpatine is back. It really came out of nowhere if you just look at the movies.
Yeah, it felt like they screwed everything up with episode 8, so they had to save it by bringing him back for some reason. But then they don't utilize him well enough to make it feel good either.
No, he sits in a freaking wheelchair throughout the movie and complains, and then reveals stuff, and he dies in the end.
But then in the end, he becomes like the most powerful thing in the world, and then Rey comes out, "I'm Captain Marvel, you're dead," and then it's over. It's like the hugest anti-climax.
That was actually a very good analogy, Captain Marvel, because I cared about Captain Marvel in Avengers as I cared about Rey in Star Wars. That is exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we can talk about this forever, but I think we need to, end this. Or do you want to rate this? I mean, it's hard to rate it. Don't give it 1 to 10, but I think you should rate it towards the Star Wars entirely. So can you do that, you think?
Maybe. We can try.
Let's give it a try. Rank this trilogy, this storyline towards Star Wars as a whole.
Okay. So this is hard because the trilogy 1, 2, 3 is very different from trilogy 4, 5, 6. But of the 3 trilogies, this is still my least favorite, mostly because you never feel that there is a thread going through it. It's it started out well, but after that, it makes no sense in the next movie, and the next movie makes no sense either because it had to pick up after the last movie. So I'm compared to the other Star Wars movies, let's say, if I would say that the other Star Wars movies as a whole is, 10, I guess. Yeah, just a number.
Yeah, of course.
Then I would probably rate this 5.
You, Ruben?
Well, to me, it's like a huge disappointment, and it killed the franchise for me. Basically, episode 7 was. I still had high hopes for the rest of the series, and I really liked it. And then episode 8 comes along and shits on everything, and then episode 9 tries to fix what episode 8 did wrong and try to do new stuff at the same time. So it doesn't keep up with itself enough to make a decent story. It's still better than 8, but it's just like the original trilogy is pretty much perfect, I think. And the prequel trilogy is still good. It's a bit worse, but still good. And this is bad. Most of it's bad. It's like, maybe 4 out of 10, the whole trilogy. And that's because episode 7 is so good.
When you see high-profile movies today, you can still watch them and feel like it's a pretty good and solid movie because it's cool and whatnot. There's a lot of good things going on here. There's space and there's lightsabers fighting and good actors and whatnot. But still, there's no excitement for me to watch these movies. I was really, reluctant to even start watching these movies because I really feel in my core how hard it is to follow this story and how unimpressed I am of the writing and the directing and even some ways in the Rise of the Skywalker, the editing. I mean, it's so fast and it's like there's so much going on. And I remember watching that movie on the cinema as well, and I was like, slow down and make me feel like I can relax for a bit. But there were so many new things introduced, like the Wayfinder. I mean, what kind of a name is that to begin with? Come on. It's like a whack-a-mole. Can I say find a way? I don't know. So, I mean, and Disney can write good stories. I mean, when I wanted to watch, the Avengers Endgame, I really wanted to find like a good spot to watch it again. Just because, it's such a good movie. So I want to watch it in the best mood possible, with some good food, good whiskey or whatnot, because it's such a good movie. It's like the best one ever. And then you go over to Star Wars, who is so infrequently the counterpart that I don't even want to see it. It says a lot about Disney not caring about Star Wars. They just wanted to make money on the franchise. They didn't care about the movie, and they could have just released anything from their perspective, and they would have made a fortune. And I heard such good things about The Mandalorians, but I don't even feel like I want to watch it because I have such a bad taste still from the Star Wars prequels. And I know they're good, but I just don't feel comfortable watching them because what if I think they're bad too and everything is ruined?
I've recently just finished the season 2 of The Mandalorian. I was also hesitant to start watching it because I had no interest at all. But it's actually pretty good. It's some of the episodes are really good and some of it's okay. But overall, it's what the movies should have been almost.
I'm watching it right now, and it's good. It's like it feels like a pretty good and simple series in a way. Unlike the movies, they didn't feel the need to add anything unnecessary.
It's very grounded. It's like focused on one thing, and they just go around doing stuff that has to do with that thing instead of adding thousands of things from different parts of the universe into
Honestly, didn't want to watch it.
Yeah. Okay, but I think we need to move on now. So just remember that you can contact us at bmso.contact@gmail.com for suggestions, feedback, or whatever, if you just want to talk, about your day. With that said, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.